Hi there, Avian Science. So it looks like some of you have found the bearded dragon in this picture. For those of you who have not, it's right here. Not quite sure why this image is not in as good a focus, but that's where it is, right there. Okay, so we have some assignments due coming up on the 21st and the 23rd, depending on when I issued the assignment. And our last class is coming up way too fast. Last class is going to be May 4th. So the project was due on Sunday, 2 days ago. Yes, I know, it's so soon. Is anybody ready to do your presentation today?
I am. I just sent you my presentation.
Okay, do you need me to pull it up? And
Yeah, if you can, yeah.
okay.
I knew it.
All right. This is going to take me a second to get there. Oh, there it is. Wait, Laura's. Okay, so yours is a pre-recorded one. So let me share it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kimmy McDonald. It's good to see you today. I will be presenting rainbow lorikeet. And rainbow lorikeet scientific name is called Trichoglossus malacus. Meet the keats. These beautiful birds have brilliant color feathers ranging from bright yellows, radiant reds, boasting blues, and gorgeous greens going all down their back. Their normal size is 10 to 12 inches and weighs 3.5 to 5.5 ounces. These birds are part of the parrot species. Their temperament is super social and playful, have high energy, and highly intelligent. You need a lot of energy to keep up with these birds. And all of these reasons are why people are attracted to having sex. The topic I'll be talking about is natural habitat. You can visit lorikeets mostly in southern and eastern Australia, noted by the black dots on the map. Smaller populations are found in Indonesia and New Zealand. Also on the map, there are black dots indicating the natural population of the lorikeets, while the red dots are where they are being introduced by humans. Feeding and care. Lorikeets mainly eat nectar and fruit, since their gizzards have difficulty breaking down seeds. On the top of their tongue is a weird-looking brush that helps lorikeets gather nectar and pollen to eat. Lorikeets are lively bathers and benefit from a shower perch or a mister. They often sleep on their backs, sometimes alarming their owners, thinking they've gone belly up. Next topic is personality, temperament, and behavior. Lorikeets are highly intelligent birds. They love to learn new tricks. They get bored really easily, so it's important to provide a variety of toys that they can rattle and play with. Lorikeets are highly curious problem solvers and capable escape artists. So keep a lookout. Put locks on their cages and doors are a must. They are also very social and love attention and companionship. Left alone too often will likely develop behavior disorders and begin to self-harm. Another great quality is their sweet temperament, but they can be intense and demanding as well. Lorikeets are great communicators and can learn many words and phrases. Be aware that they can also be extremely noisy at times, using high-pitched, repetitive squeaks and squawks. Another topic is common health conditions. The common health condition concerns of the lorikeet is food spoilage. So it's important to change the lorikeet's water and food often, so it doesn't become infected with bacteria. Food spoilage can cause sauerkraut. And sauerkraut is an infection of the crop caused by food spoilage. The crop is a pouch that holds food in the bird's neck above the chest. The infected crop causes the digestive system to slow down and malfunction. Another common condition of the lorikeets is LPS, which stands for lorikeet paralysis syndrome. This causes paralysis in both legs and feet. The cause is unknown, but occurs seasonal in October and through June months. Many birds die within the first 24 to 48 hours because they're too weak to eat. More to know. Lorikeets primarily live in trees. There's no visible difference between males and females. Lorikeets reach sexual maturity at 2 years old. Rainbow lorikeets are monogamous and remain paired for a very long time and often for life. And females lay between 1 to 3 eggs and incubate them for approximately 26 days. These links are of videos that I found about lorikeets playing and bathing, and I'll play it up for you if we have time at the end of class. So to wrap up, these are the sources I used from the research on my project, and thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Kinley. Does anybody have any questions about lorikeets for Kinley?
Well, I want to know more about LPS, but I understand maybe that's not going to happen for me.
Yeah, I do too. It's from my understanding, it's mostly affects wild lorikeets in the wilds, and it affects how they walk. So it kind of paralyzes them, so it's hard for them to move around, which is really sad, but that's kind of the
So-
understanding.
So if they don't die within the first 1 to 2 days, does it resolve?
They can survive, but it's still like they still have some type of problems with their legs, but they can live
Can
and
they,
move around.
so it
And-
doesn't
and
affect their
does it-
wings, like they're flying at all, does it?
Just a little bit, yeah, it can affect the flying.
And if they do survive, does it go away at the end of those months, or is it then the rest of their life?
It's more like the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I liked the picture of their tongue.
Yeah.
I
The
haven't-
picture of their tongue, and I found this hilarious when it was saying that they sleep on their backs. I honestly, on that video, there's a few times that I almost cracked up while actually recording it. And I'm like, oh, I smiled there. Okay. So it was hilarious. But the videos that are linked, if you guys want to watch it, they're actually, those are the videos of them playing on their backs and like playing in water. It's actually quite cute. They're funny.
That sounds like it. Good.
Yeah.
Do they sleep on their backs in the wild?
I think so, yeah. It's kind of strange.
They in the wild, if they sleep on their backs, they probably do that in a cavity because they're cavity nesters.
Mhm.
I think
They live in trees, yeah.
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 I think they'd be way too vulnerable to like do that on the
Falling
ground.
off?
I was just gonna say, wouldn't they be really vulnerable if they did that on the ground? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I just like the photo.
Oh, yeah,
'cause
or
it has,
if
like,
they're
red
upside
eyes
down
and
on a tree branch.
True.
That was really good though.
Roll.
Okay. So Laura said she can go next. So do you want me to pull up your presentation, Laura, or do you want to do it?
I can pull it up and because I just wanted you to have a copy of it.
Okay.
Cool. Let me just
Then
grab it.
what
real
I'm
quick.
gonna do, make sure. I gotta remember how to do this.
Let's do this, yeah, all right. Let you know.
Laura. Let me know when you're ready and I'll walk you through how to get it to show up.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there we go.
I'm good. I got this. So I did bald eagles, which are a symbol of strength, if anyone didn't know that. And that is a bald eagle. Oh, whatever. So let me just move this thing a little bit. So the bald eagle and the history, and this is just in the United States. So I found this really interesting because the bald eagle has been the national bird and part of our national symbol since 1782, and it became official in 1789. And then in 1776, the bald eagle first appeared as an American symbol on a Massachusetts copper coin. So, because we're in Massachusetts, some of us, found that really interesting, and that's something I wanted to put in there. So what do they primarily eat? So they'll eat fish, waterfowl, shorebirds, water birds, turtles, rabbits, snakes, small animals, and carrion. And then they're visual hunters, and they hunt from a conspicuous perch or soaring in flight and swoop down and snatch their prey. So this is also really cool. I kind of blended this in for you guys. See if I can move this so I can. It just shows on the right is the male, and then on the left is a female. And then so the coloration of their bodies and the size they can get up to. They're, as you know, they're probably well known, as you know, probably that they're well known for their white head, the yellow tail, brown body, and as well as their yellow beak. Juvenile bald eagles have dark eyes and bills and they will lighten as they make their way to adulthood. They are large, powerful birds. A female can have a wingspan of up to 8 feet. And their males are actually smaller than females and can have a wingspan up to 6 feet. Females can weigh up to 14 pounds and males will weigh up to 10 pounds. So yes, they are smaller, but bald eagles in Alaska are known to reach 16 pounds in weight. So they're very big. And someday I hope to go to Alaska and see if I can find one. And that'd be pretty cool to see that size. So I added a video of the bald eagle coming off a branch far up in a tree, spotting a salmon and snatching it. And I wanted to play this because it is very interesting. That is a huge fish to catch.
Yes, it is.
And just knowing that, like, okay, the fish is right here, like, so it just shows you how powerful their eyesight is and their accuracy of catching a prey like that. I mean, and plus it's going, this is in slow-mo, but like when you're going at that speed, it's got to be hard. So that's why I included that in there, because that's just shows you how in their claws, how big they are. And then this is the call of a bald eagle. So you'll know, if you want to go sightsee to a high area where there's spotted bald eagles before, that's how you can tell if it's a bald eagle, just from learning how they sound. So now you know that if you hear that and you're in an area where there's they've been seen, now you can say, oh, maybe that's a bald eagle. So now their lifespan and how big their nest can be. So in the wild, they can live as long as 30 years old, and in captivity, they live even longer than that. And at 4 to 5 years of age is when they are at most capable of breeding. And then in much denser populations, they're known to breed when they're much older. So when they're 4 or 5 years of age, or even later than that, they'll breed. And then they mate for life. And then if one of the pairs dies, the survivor will find them a new mate. And then they'll build their nests at the top of a large tree and are usually anywhere from 4 to 5 feet wide and have a depth of 2 to 4 feet. Weighing thousands of pounds, and their nests can reach around 10 feet across. So, because the bird's huge, so they have to make the nests in order for them to, for their birds to raise their bird and to suit. So if they have to come into the nest, they can fit in it. So now a little bit where they range from. So our national symbol, this is gonna tie into that, the great story of how they came back from nearly being wiped out. So in the 1900s, our national symbol was in danger of an extinction throughout most of its range. And it's an all-American bird and is the only eagle solely native to North America. So the bird's historic range is from Canada and Alaska, covering the neighboring United States and going all the way down northern Mexico. So it's a pretty wide range, but it's yep, we'll see why, but right out, it came back from extinction, near extinction. So this is just a map of the range. So as you could see, so it's purple is year round, so all the way down, and then non-breeding, most of the US, and then the breeding is that upper part of the map right here. So it's, like we said, this part is going to be a little bit of, there's some purple in the lower states. And then we have the eastern. There's some purple in there. And then orange, Alaska, a lot of Alaska is breeding. So like I said, you're probably going to see those the bigger ones up there, but they will also be spotted in Canada. So endangered species and a remarkable story. So now that we know the range and that it was when it was in danger of extinction, there is a chemical that was released into waterways, and this was called DDT, which is dichloro diphentric. I mean, it's a really long. I want to say.
You want me to pronounce it for you, Laura? Dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. So like I said, you can just call it DDT. It's much easier. It's an insecticide. And this is one of the ways that the bald eagle is wiped out, as well as illegal shooting, habitat destruction, and degradation, which means they were taking, they were degrading from their habitats were degraded, like they were, so instead of an upgrade, it was degrading. And then also the contamination of their food using this insecticide. And shortly after the Second World War, DDT was flagged as a new pesticide that was used to control mosquitoes as well as other insects. The only issue and major problem was when the insecticide and its residues were being washed into waterways, like I said, that were nearby sources for this bird, like, because they eat fish, they could hunt a fish that was infected with this insecticide, and now the bird would have that, would be poisoned. So that's the main way that it would catch this insecticide or get poisoned from the insecticide, is because the fish that were in the waterways were getting poisoned. So now this is a very harmful chemical, and it caused the ability, it caused bald eagles they would produce such a strong shelled egg, and this would result in the eggshell. So the eggshell being so thin and or resulted in the eggs to often crack. So usually they produce, so what's also, the eggs have a protective, like they're like paper, it would be really thin. So if you have a egg that's that thin, then it has the effect of the baby not surviving, they're young, not surviving, or cracking during incubation. And that can result in fatality for the bird. So it had very brutal effects on the reproduction and affected how their eggs would, how they would reproduce eggs. And in 1963, there were only 417 nesting pairs of bald eagles that were known to exist, which is very low. And what the public and federal government did. So the federal government had banned the insecticide. Habitat protection was afforded by the Endangered Species Act, and conservation actions were being taken by the American public. And these have all helped the bald eagle make a remarkable comeback or recovery from the effects of DDT that had been washed in their waterways. So in 1940, 1962, 1978, and 1995, why are these dates important? In 1940, Congress had passed a protection act called the Bald Eagle Protection Act, which had prohibited any killing, selling, or possession of the species. And an amendment in 1962 had added the golden eagle to the act, which is now the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. And then 1978 is when they have listed the bald eagle as endangered throughout the lower 48 states. But in Michigan, Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, and Wisconsin, it was listed as threatened. And in Alaska, the bald eagle was listed as neither threatened or endangered due to their populations remaining at a higher number or a more successful number. And then in 1995, it was announced that bald eagles in the lower 48 states have recovered to the point where previously considered populations listed as endangered were moved up to threatened. So now, today, the bald eagle is not endangered. So in 2007, it was listed as not endangered, delisted from the Endangered Species Act or list. Bald eagles still face the threats that can reduce their lifespan, which include pollutants like mercury, heavy metals, constant organic chemicals, and insecticides like DDT. Even though their population is increasing, they will still have that threat, or that's going to, that could always face that chemical is always going to be around, but they're not considered as endangered or threatened due to the actions that we are taking now. There's less of DDT because it's banned. And people can't hunt or, you know, kill the species, so. And then the US Fish and Wildlife Service has published a technical report where the newest estimates for the bald eagles population sizes in the lower 48 states was totaling 316,700,000 individuals, including 71,467 occupied nests. And that is my sources, and then there's some more works cited for you guys. Any questions about that? No questions?
I don't have
I-
a question, but, and I don't know where to find it at the moment, but I did stumble upon a video a little while ago of a bald eagle sitting on their nest and the wind blew wrong and just tumbled the bird ass over tea kettles out of the nest.
Yeah, no, I think, yes, I saw some of those too. It's really fascinating.
Yeah,
I think, because the bird, like I said, it's crazy how big they can get. And I think a lot of people would think, oh, the males would get bigger than the females. But the females have to raise their offspring and they have to do the raising of the bird, which kind of adds into why they're bigger than the males. But I think the coolest thing about it is the Alaskan, how big those ones can get. And also the bird's nests, how big they are, because that just tells you as the bird's nest is going to be that big. Just imagine how big the babies are when they hatch. So these
Yeah.
are really powerful and incredible birds. So it's crazy, you know, it sucks to see that they were being harmed by this chemical, but it's also really, really amazing to see how they came back from it. Which that was like, when I saw that, I was just like, wow, like that's incredible. Like, you know, who would want to hurt such a beautiful animal? So, but yeah. That's about it.
okay, thank you. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Jessica said she was gonna go next, but I am not finding her video. So it looks like it's gonna be Ronit. Let me just make you a co-host. And then you can take it away while you're
Cheers.
getting ready. I like the fact, Laura, that you did the call of the bald eagle, because so often the bald eagle is, you know, shown making that loud wah, caw sound, which they don't make. That's a red-tailed hawk.
No, yeah, because I was gonna say a lot of people mistake that for different, like a different call from a different bird, but it's the eagle's call.
How are you doing there, Ronit? You need help? Okay.
Can we all see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Cheers. Okay, so I will talk a little bit about my project and then I will sort of show the ultimate result. So my project, I painted a stop motion animation of the courtship display of the superb bird of paradise. I know we talked a little bit about birds of paradise in class because they are some of the most, if not the most, extreme examples of what sexual selection can give you, especially in birds. There are about 40 species, although they live in New Guinea and Northern Australia and in pretty hard to reach parts of the forest, so we're still learning. 15 genera. Some of them, most of them are very colorful. There are only a couple that look almost like crows. And instead of performing dances that show off their colors, those birds tend to sing. One species has just crazy trachea alterations so that they can amplify their voice. And the other one has like a wildly rich song. But most of them have bright colors and wild feathers. Pretty much all of the feathers that are used in these displays are not part of their wings or their tails. There are a few that have like certain shaped tails, but most of the time they are additional flank feathers or chest feathers that they can move about. One species has 2 feathers that stick off of their forehead that are unique among all birds. There's no other feather like this. And they move them around. The 2 scientists, they're the 2 people who sort of compiled most of the visual information that we have on birds of paradise. There's a Cornell University ornithologist named Ed Scholes and a Nat Geo photographer, Tim Lehman. And they started in 2008 and were planning on photographing just the clade that the ornithologist was studying. And then they decided that they wanted to try to photograph all of them. And it took them almost 10 years, something like over 30,000 photos. But they did successfully do it. They have a lecture that they did, and they likened those really long feathers to us having 6-foot poles sticking out of our eyebrows and being able to manipulate them with just the muscles of our eyebrows. So these birds are pretty wild. There are also a bunch that are shapeshifters. They really turn into not bird shapes. Often these ones are dark and they have bright colored patches that they will show off in intricate, fast movements. The superb bird of paradise, which is the one that I chose to animate, is one of these. It is black, and the male has an iridescent green chest feathers that he can extend out, and he has an iridescent patch on his head that such that when he moves his shoulder feathers up and turns ovoid, he can pull his head back and you can see that patch. And instead of making a call as he's doing this dance, he snaps his wings together and makes a clicking sound. What's up, Kinley?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but if you're trying to show us something, we can't really.
I'm not yet.
Okay, good. Just
Yeah,
making sure.
Thank you. It's only 13 seconds long, so I thought I would introduce the stuff and then well. The female, like most of the females of birds of paradise, is not super brightly colored. Some of them have some of those bright colored patches, but they don't tend to have the specialized feathers. And except for a couple species, evidence suggests that the males don't play any role in the raising of chicks. So the superb bird of paradise, our handsome man. I will play it right now. There is no sound. Here we go. Ta-da. So this dance is usually done on often on a fallen log. So pretty wide log that allows them to kind of spin around each other. And like a lot of the birds of paradise, this is a species where the male will perform this display without any females around. Is he practicing? Is he psyching out the competition? I don't know. It's a huge amount of work for him. They end up breathing very hard at the end. So I think that's all I've got.
Okay, great. Good animation there.
Thank you.
That was fun. I love how, of course,
I have a question
she
also.
flew off at the end.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe she came back. I don't know.
Somebody said they had a
Anna
question.
did. What's
I
up?
do. Around how long do these birds live?
I don't know. I don't know. There's your answer. I don't know.
Thank you. I'll
Yep.
Google.
Yep. I believe they come into sexual maturity fairly quickly. They don't really have any predators.
That
I'm
doesn't
not
guarantee a long lifespan.
No. I'm just saying that's not something that's gonna kill them.
Dr. Google says between 5 and 8 years.
That was gonna be my guess.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Daniel has a question. What's up?
It's not really a question, but seeing the animation reminds me of the fact that now scientists are speculating that some theropod dinosaurs actually done the same kind of dance as those birds. And we could actually see one of, I believe it's Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV with the Carnotaurus. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Was that the one with the little tiny arms and then he holds his arms
Yeah.
out?
Yes, it is.
How do we know that?
I feel like it's also like something like when bearded dragons are showing defense, they flare their beard out, like he's flaring, he transforms, so it. But like, yeah, I get what I know what you're talking about. The
Yeah.
I don't think
Is
we
it-
know
is
it,
it-
but we just see it in movies, so we think.
Is it paleontological morphology, or do we have actual physical, like fossil record of something that hints at said dance?
So I don't know that we have specific fossil records that hint at the dance, but we certainly have seen frills and feather impressions that are similar to what we see in modern animals that make us think that they probably use them for display. It's an educated guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I step all over you there, Daniel?
No, you actually helped out with the explanation a lot better than I could.
Okay. All right. I know we've got a couple of people who are going on Thursday. Is there anybody else who's supposed to go today?
I think Jessica said she could go, but she's pre-recorded.
Yeah, she said there was a problem with the recording, so we're gonna put that off till Thursday.
Now, Roni, did you draw that animation? That's insane. That was really good.
Yeah, I painted them.
That's really cool.
That is really cool.
That's I believe it's about 100 frames, 58 images.
That's crazy.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well, if we don't have anybody else who needs to go with their presentation today, then I will try and find my PowerPoint. Okay. Oh, go away, you little stupid thing. There we go. Nope, we already did that. All right. Okay, so we have been talking about wildlife rehabilitation. And I know that when we were talking about this last time, we were getting really excited at the end of the session and had a really interesting conversation, and somebody's knocking on my door trying to sell me something, so I'm going to ignore them. But if you hear the doorbell, that's what that is. So we were talking kind of briefly about mammals and how baby rabbits and baby deer are sometimes picked up when they don't really need help. In wildlife rehab, you mostly get the more common species, so squirrels and possums, as far as mammals go. You don't tend to get very many reptiles or amphibians. A lot of places will get aquatic turtles as the most common group of organisms. Many times these are hit by car because they leave the water and they have to lay their nest on land. And often they'll travel quite a ways from the water to lay their eggs. And so they're very vulnerable when they do that. Some places, for example, will not take venomous snakes, for example. Some will, you would have to call. In Massachusetts, most of the middle and upper parts of New England, there are not a lot of venomous snakes. So that's really not a concern there. While you need a permit to do wildlife rehab, so there's a lot of permitting required. Your permit's going to come from your state Fish and Wildlife, or Fish and Game, or Game and Fish, or, there's a lot of different ways to say Fish and Wildlife, but they're all very similar with basically the same concept behind these organizations. For a lot of species, you need additional permits. Birds require federal permits. Now, we're going to put our little asterisks here because we know that this doesn't include pigeons, starlings, and house sparrows. But any other type of bird will require a federal permit. Raptors, additional permit. Eagles, endangered species, additional permits. So endangered species require a additional permit because if their species is already endangered, it is very important that every individual that we can save, we do save. So having these additional permits means that the people who get the endangered species are those who are most likely to keep them alive.
Diana,
Yes,
would you do me a favor really quickly? Would you please remove me from being a co-host?
I think you have to remove yourself.
How do I do that?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me check. Oh, I can remove your co-host permissions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So that's birds, but there are also issues with mammals. And since I know this is a bird class, but I know you guys are interested in wildlife rehabilitation in general. So permits for mammals. You don't need a permit to do squirrels and possums. Those guys, easy. You don't need a permit to do rabbits. They're tricky, but if you know what you're doing and are experienced at it, they're not that hard. But rabies vector species, so bats, raccoons, skunks, foxes, those are going to require a special permit. And you will need to have a rabies vaccine to handle those. That's why I have a rabies vaccine, because I was working at a facility that had permission to treat rabies species. Predators often require special permits. Foxes, coyotes, and bobcats. These are the groups that we're talking about here. They have special challenges about them. One of which is that before you release them, you have to make sure that they can hunt. And that requires special types of enclosures. And it's not very pleasant. It's not something the average animal lover wants to see. Not surprisingly, bears, basically, nobody does rehab on bears. It's too complicated. They are too dangerous to work with. And if you raise orphaned bears, they can't be released. We simply do not have the skills necessary to train them to hunt. We can train bobcats to hunt. We can train coyotes to hunt. But bears need more, they need to learn more from their parents than we can teach them. Deer, moose, and elk would require special permits. These species, you can raise the orphans. You really need to know what you're doing in order to do this successfully. We were talking last time about somebody who thought it was cute to show videos of himself bottle feeding baby deer or adult deer or something like that. You want to make sure that you raise animals that are likely to be hunted in a way that they're going to still be afraid of people when they're released, because otherwise they're very, very vulnerable. So that requires additional permits. venomous snakes and the Gila monsters, those generally require an additional permit as well because of the risk to people. If you get bitten by a venomous snake while you're trying to rehab it, that could be pretty bad. That could be really rough. All right. I'm going to say some things now that are not very pleasant. So for the next 2 slides, we're going to be talking not so great stuff. This is your warning. When we talk about wildlife rehab, a lot of people think, oh, it's snuggling cute little baby bunny rabbits, it's snuggling baby deer. Yeah, it's not that. Over half of all animals that come into rehab do not survive. Now, the rate is lower for people who specialize in raising orphaned animals, especially those who raise squirrels and possums. Raising squirrels and possums, you have a much, much higher survival rate. Anybody who specializes in adults or some of the more difficult species is going to have a higher mortality rate. So depending on what kinds of animals you work with, you're going to have a variable mortality rate, but there's going to be a significant number of animals who don't make it. And some of them, rabbits, if rabbits are being cared for at a rehab facility, they tend to have poor survival rates. If rabbits are being raised in a home by one person who does all of the care, they tend to have a much better survival rate. So they seem to be able to accept one person caring for them. But if they have different people coming in all the time, that seems to be a real problem.
Is
Oh,
it
question
stress?
about that. What
Okay, I
if
heard,
it's another rabbit taking care of another, like you can't have, but so like this is people, but when it
yes, it's people.
goes into the, like when it's in another, like let's say, okay, so like people get that rabbit and they are watching it, but there's other rabbits, will it associate other rabbits with that type of thing or no? Like it's not a person, but it's another rabbit. So like high volumes of other rabbits.
Okay, so you can certainly have multiple rabbits in rehab. And if they're raising orphaned babies, they will interact with each other and be fine. Generally speaking, rabbits become somewhat territorial about the time they reach sexual maturity, which is very, very young for rabbits. But you would release them into the wild before that happened. The rabbits are stressing out from lots of different people. So there is something called capture myopathy. So capture myopathy which I thought I was going to talk about later, but since we're asking the questions, I'm going to talk about it now. Capture myopathy is a condition where animals under certain species of animals under extreme stress or a long period of exertion. I see your hand up, Daniel. I'll get to you in just a second. Their muscles basically start to break down. And the species that we're talking about tend to be hooved animals like deer, moose, elk, rabbits, kangaroos, some bird species like flamingos. And so this can be a real problem when you're trying to handle or rehab these. Go ahead, Daniel. Were you going to talk about the flamingos?
Yeah, I was gonna say that they are very prone to it, especially on hot days.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I am the person who watches those videos of a deer inside a supermarket running around, crashing into everything. And finally they heard it out the door. And everybody, most people go, oh, that's a good feel-good story. And I'm going, oh, that animal's probably going to go off and have capture myopathy and not make it. Yeah. Life in the wild is so difficult for animals. It'll break your heart. When you learn about these kinds of things, it'll really break your heart. Okay. Generally, peak activity is going to be in the spring and summer. So most animals will come into wildlife rehab during this time of the year. A lot of time, a lot of these intakes are basically kidnapped babies. Baby birds like fledglings, like this is a fledgling right here. He's fine. He does not need to be picked up. Yes, sometimes in the pet trade, you do get animals that are prone to capture myopathy, and the stress does kill them. Yeah, you're right, Laura. Those species probably should not be sold in the pet trade. We also get baby rabbits, baby deer. People are good, well-meaning, warm-hearted. They assume that if they see an animal, a baby animal on its own, it needs help. Most of the time, they don't. And so a lot of these animals come in, they're kidnapped, and you may or may not be able to convince the person to take the animal back to where they found it and put it back. And that can be emotionally draining. There's a reason that wild people who do wildlife rehab tend to burn out after 5 years. That's just about how long you can handle a lot of the emotional and in the summer times, the physical exhaustion that comes from dealing with these situations. The number one reason that animals have to go to wildlife rehab is cats. Nothing else even comes close. Cats are number one. Everything else is a distant second.
So do you just mean pet cats, like that cat, or like, because tigers are cats?
No, pet cats.
Okay.
Pet cats. Yeah. So caught by cat or injured by a cat is the number one reason animals have to end up coming into rehab. We don't have tigers running around loose in America. And if a tiger went after a rabbit or a deer, yeah, it's not going to survive to go to rehab. We're talking about domestic cats. So this is me once again saying, please keep your cats indoors unless it's in a catio or a on leash. Texas does have a relatively high tiger population. They're pet tigers. I was so excited to hear last year that the federal government is phasing out pet ownership of the large cats. So if you already have a tiger, you can get grandfathered in to keep it. But as of the beginning of this year, it is illegal for people to acquire and keep as a pet tigers, lions, cougars or mountain lions, cheetahs. I'm pretty sure leopards and jaguars are on the list. Snow leopards. Panthers, which are, that just means a dark colored big cat of any kind. I think that's it. So the big cats. As of now, there are people who do have them as pets, but they're being banned, which I think is long overdue, because while there are probably, you know, maybe a handful of people who know what they're doing and can adequately take care of them, most of those people don't have the money to do it. Most people who have a pet tiger or lion or etc. are not taking good care of it and not doing a good job. I don't believe, yeah, Daniel chimed in to answer your question, Laura. It's just the big cats right now. Lynx, bobcats, servals, the mid-sized cats are still allowed. I have my opinions about that as well, but you know, there are people who can do it, but most people who try to do it are not the same people who can do it. So in addition to spending 6 or 7 years doing wildlife rehab, both part-time and full-time, I also spent multiple years working at a carnivore sanctuary that took in big cats and mid-sized cats, and various other exotic cats. And this facility that I was at would get in around 350 to 400 phone calls a year for people who were trying to find placement for their exotic cats. Now, that's more than one a day. There is no facility in the world who can take on all of the unwanted big cats that are being kept as pets. There's just not enough facilities that can do that. So I'm very glad to hear that we're going to be phasing out pet ownership of these guys. Sorry, that was my soapbox. Once again. Okay. If you find an animal and you are not sure if it needs to go into rehab, if it is not clearly injured and not in immediate threat, so like in the middle of the road or being, you know, stalked by a cat or a dog, leave it where it is and call a rehabber for advice. Your state Fish and Wildlife Service will have a list of licensed rehabbers on their website. Some of them are more up to date than others, but those are the people who issue the permits for their state. And so they often will have that information. Lots of animal control departments or animal shelters will also have contacts for local rehabbers. If you are interested in doing wildlife rehabilitation, rehabilitation centers and some individuals will happily take you on as a volunteer. Now you're going to start out doing the dirty work. You're going to be washing dishes and doing laundry. Has to be done, and there's a lot of it to do. And then you can progress to more challenging tasks, dealing with actually interacting with the animals. There are two major organizations, the National Wildlife Rehabilitators Association and the International Wildlife Rehabilitators Council, that have a lot of information and training opportunities. So they will often have periodic conferences where you can go to the conference and you can learn how to do things. And I've gone to a couple of these, and a lot of times they even have, well, they usually have domestic rabbits and pigeons for you to get some hands-on experience, because those are not going to stress out nearly as much. Man, the rabbit that I learned how to put a splint on was the most laid-back rabbit I have ever seen. It was just like, yep, okay, you're going to split my leg. Yep, go right ahead. No big deal. Never met a rabbit that chill before.
Huh.
These organizations can sometimes also have lists of rehabbers, and they have ideas about dealing with nuisance wildlife problems. So a lot of people, when they have a problem with wildlife, the problem is on the people side. They may think it's a problem, and these organizations will have information. You know, if it is really a problem, if you really do have raccoons in your attic, yeah, you really don't want raccoons in your attic. These organizations will often have ways to deal with that. I'm going to add another. Cornell University has a bird lab. They're known for being the place to go if you want to study ornithology. Ah, yes, Fuzz by Mary Roach. It's in my pile of books to be read after the semester's over. So Cornell University has some good advice if you've got bird-specific problems. Never trust a pest control company to have the animals or your best interest at heart. Do not trust them. They will tell you things that they may be just flat out lies. So I've heard people who had called pest control companies and they were like, oh yeah, they suggested this. And I'm like, you know, I'm feeling horror rising up in my stomach. That's not the thing to do. That's not going to work, or it's going to harm the animal. So just don't trust them. And don't trust them if you're looking for pictures of, say, termites or carpenter ants or black widow or brown recluse spiders or poisonous snakes, venomous snakes, because a lot of times their pictures are not correctly identified. Okay. I think that's where we're going to stop for the day. Any questions on any of that right now? Nope. Okay. in that case, I will see everyone on Thursday. Bye.